Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Clallam EDC Coffee with Colleen chat. My name is Mitch. I'm the communication manager at Clallam EDC. Colleen will be joining the call here shortly, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off and introduce our special guest, Meggan Uecker from the city of Sequim. She's the resource analyst for the city of Sequim. She's also holds another role. She's the chair of the Clallam County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Bit of a mouthful there, but a really important role. So we're thankful to have her today. Before we kick off and hear a presentation, we do ask that you remain on mute. Unless you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you, or feel free to put the question in the chat. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Meggan, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here.
Great.
Okay.
Looks good.
Looks good. Okay. All right. And again, in this view, I cannot see the rest of you. And so I'm just going to I'm going to invite questions as I go. I've tried to keep my slides pretty minimal because solid waste is a, believe it or not, lively topic, and it can go in a lot of directions. And so I welcome questions as I go, and just pipe up, and Mitch will assist me with that.
I'll be your eyes.
Yep. So again, thank you. My name is Meggan Uecker, and yes, I'm the resource analyst for the city of Sequim and chair of the Clallam County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I have held a number of solid waste related positions in Clallam County over the last decade, from intern to superintendent. But I'm here today in my current roles in the Public Works Department of City of Sequim and as the Clallam County Chair. Now I have to figure out how to forward.
Does it let you just click to the right in advance?
It doesn't with my arrows. Nope. Guess we should have tested that out.
It happens.
Okay, I'm going to stop share for a brief moment because it's not letting me escape either. Weird. That's annoying. It's like I'm stuck on the screen. Okay, maybe it's down here. All right. How about that? Are you still seeing my screen?
No longer seeing your screen.
Okay, let's reshare. Sorry, folks. End the show. Come back to Zoom. Share. Okay.
All right, I'm seeing your screen now.
Okay, and I found where I'm going to forward it. Okay, so.
Beautiful.
How about that?
Looks good.
Okay, so again, today's focus, I'm going to kind of give a bit of an overview of solid waste management in Clallam County and some of the players there. And then I want to share a little bit about the upcoming update to the Clallam County Solid Waste Management Plan and really emphasize connection to local business, economic development, statewide policy, and the opportunity for business and public input. And then I'm going to share about Sequim's system of materials management. So wanted to start here, again, kind of in the management roles, so folks understand who is doing what a little bit. It's pretty, the solid waste utility in Clallam County has a lot of players here that regulate how solid waste is handled. So the State Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission, or WUTC, issues G certificates, and that is sort of the permission or a certificate to collect and haul waste. We've got two G certificates operating in our county, one with Waste Connections and one with West Waste. And so those can overlap, but they kind of keep, sort of areas of collections so that we don't have a million haulers going in all directions on each street. The Department of Ecology plays a big role in solid waste management. They are a planning lead. They certify operators of landfills and compost operations. They track a lot of data. They also develop solid waste laws and implement those laws that are, passed by the legislature. We'll look at a few of those more in depth later. The county has a role in that they permit solid waste facilities, so compost operations, landfills, transfer stations, and they are the kind of local planning lead. They again host SWAC and our comprehensive plan on solid waste. We'll talk more about that. Each city under state law contracts or provides solid waste services. So sort of outside of the G certificate system, they are individually, the cities decide how they're going to provide those solid waste services to their citizens. And a little bit unique in our county is that the city of Port Angeles does operate the municipal transfer station system. So both Blue Mountain and the regional transfer station in Port Angeles, those are municipal or public transfer stations, but those are operated by the city of Port Angeles, including sort of the disposal of that waste, where it goes in the end. And then the Macaw Nation, they also operate a transfer station and a collection system. And then we have a lot of private companies and organizations. Really, again, this solid waste utility is a public-private partnership. So various companies are providing materials management services, again, under a G certificate, like Waste Connections or Olympic Disposal does in the city of Sequim. Excuse me, they do in the county, under a G certificate, under contract in the city. There's state programs that collect various materials that also partner with private businesses or businesses that have a business license, maybe to collect metals for recycling or other things like that. So our materials are being managed in a variety of ways under all of these, with all of these organizations playing a part.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. So Solid Waste Advisory Committee, this is required by state law. It's required to kind of be ongoing, not just ad hoc, and provide serve as an advisory to the Board of Column Commissioners. And really, their role is to assist in the development of programs and policies around solid waste handling, disposal, review and comment upon proposed rules, policies, and ordinances prior to adoption. So we meet. We're done for the year, but we'll meet starting in January 26th, the third Wednesdays, 3 to 4:30 at the courthouse via Teams. You can find information about this online on the county website, both televised meetings and then the agendas and minutes and recordings afterwards. It's made up of 10 members and then 10 alternates. So all cities and the county have a representative, at-large positions, the agriculture community due to the composting element of solid waste, business community, tribal governments, and solid waste industry. And we are looking for members. We need members right now, especially as we undertake one of our big activities, which is the update of the solid waste management plan. We always welcome people to show up and to participate. This helps improve the accuracy and then the eventual implementation of this plan on behalf of all of Clallam County. So we welcome your participation. Here's our current solid waste management plan. Again, this process is led by Clallam County. However, all of the cities are signatories to this and are required to have either their own plan or a joint plan. And the update should be happening over the next year and a half. And I like to think of this as a planner as a real opportunity. It's more than just describing, the pickup on the curb. There's a lot of tie-ins with solid waste and economic development. There's opportunities for businesses to develop, either providing solid waste services or using byproducts that are considered solid waste. Sort of the concept of industrial symbiosis. One industry's waste is another, our inputs for another business. It has a big tie-in to sustainability and climate planning on a lot of the climate elements that are being developed and climate action plans that are being developed by various cities in the county. There are a number of recommendations and plans that are dealing with food waste, are dealing with climate reductions in the solid waste arena. This plan really looks at municipal and business operations, really trying to capture the conditions and the stories of what's existing and what opportunities there are in our county. So this includes updates on transfer stations, on landfills, and then a lot of sort of public or private activities. For instance, private composting operations like we see at Lazy J. We have a business called Sisterland that is composting commercial food waste, and along with wood waste from the Composite Recycling Technology Center. We capture conditions around reuse that's being done by Habitat for Humanity and Around Again. We capture the conditions in the wood byproduct industry, as wood byproducts are used as biofuel or to develop biochar. So many of you have participated in those conversations. Those get tucked into this plan. Repair initiatives that are happening, like out in Forks, there's a big repair initiative at Ginger's Closet on textiles. And then we talk about special wastes like construction and demolition waste, marine debris, fish processing waste, all sorts of things. So all of that work that's being done, we try to capture in this plan. So again, great reason to have your input so that we know what's going on, and again, can capture some of the opportunities. This is a time where we look at capital needs and program needs around solid waste, as across the county. Public input is very important to what they want for solid waste programs. It's a time for all of us to look at data, to analyze that and see how that might affect the work that we're doing in our industries, to see what the landscape is like, what's being produced, inputs, what's being imported and exported in terms of waste. And then, of course, a comprehensive plan always has policy recommendations, and those are used both by municipalities as well as private industry to support grants for programs and capital acquisition, to support their capital acquisition programs and program development. So we want to make sure that those policy recommendations are accurate, they're effective, something that we can use as we move forward, and we can point to show that we have support, public support and agreement on where we're going and what we want to accomplish with solid waste. So,
Megan, just had a few questions on there.
yeah.
When did the city of PA, or why did the city of PA take over the operations and collections at the transfer station? And then has that lowered rates for the payers or increased them?
Yep, that's a big question. And so well, I'm going to say a couple things. You know, again, cities are legally able to either contract for services or to provide those services themselves. And that decision was made by staff at the city of Port Angeles a number of years ago. Those, you know, they have said that that was part of a strategy to manage rates. And, you know, I have a slide here that's going to come up that talks a little bit about some of the other factors that go into the collection of solid waste and the management of rates. So I'll touch on that a little bit. But those rates, again, I think that's more of a question for City of Port Angeles.
Got it.
Yeah.
How often do you update the plan?
The plan gets updated every 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then has the committee explored the use of barging to move solid waste yet?
That is usually included in our plan updates. You know, again, kind of capturing that conversation that we know has taken place among various entities for sure as an opportunity, not necessarily an existing condition, but as an opportunity. And I want to say that also the plan, while it's updated every 5 years, can be amended.
Got it.
There's a process for that is outlined in the plan.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So again, solid waste management plan, SMWP. I just wanted to hit on some other highlights and elements of that plan. It includes a 6-year capital and acquisition projection. And we really use, since the city of Port Angeles is the primary municipal sort of transfer station operators, really is kind of contains the municipal operations. We adopt their 6-year capital and acquisition plan as an appendix to the SWMP. So we look at lists of designated recyclables. We need to include those, what's accepted, talk about markets for those recyclables. We get a lot into waste reduction and source separation, which is again separating materials at the source so they can be used and go towards different, become inputs for different markets. We look at, again, our 20-year solid waste handling needs across the county. We're required to look at organic materials management. So this would be food waste, wood waste, yard waste, things like that. Required to have hazardous waste management plan and a contamination reduction and outreach plan. And I will define contamination in a few slides. We have both of those plans. So again, this year we're just going through an update rather than a full rewrite because we've done a lot of work on our last plan that hopefully makes it pretty accurate. Although again, some big changes have happened since then. So we'll make sure we get those included. I wanted to touch a little bit on state policies because these, again, appear as programs that we use locally in a way that we manage our various materials and how we are required to plan, and also can affect some of the economics of materials management locally. So this includes the state has and the state and the legislature have really passed actually a lot of new solid waste legislation in the last maybe over the last decade, and especially in the last couple years. So got a really a changing landscape at the state that affects us locally. So they've passed a lot of what's called product stewardship laws, and this is where there's fees imposed on these materials um, that at their point of production. So um, this includes paint, mercury containing lights, electronics, certain electronics, and soon to be stood up as a battery product stewardship law. And so again, this looks like paint care program where we can take old latex paint for recycling to um, local stores. Same for our mercury lights, containing lights. Our e-waste programs that locally are managed by Goodwill in Sequim and Port Angeles. So that's what those programs are like. Organics management laws, since we're pretty rural out here, we don't we don't have to meet all of the components of the laws if they've been stood out. The overall intent was to increase the diversion of organic material from the landfill into beneficial use, and also to help stand up markets for the use of end products. So locally, we are in Clallam County, our cities and county are required to have compost procurement ordinances, which discuss how we are both getting rid of our compostable materials and using them. And then a big one that was just enacted this year, and we're going to be seeing rolling out over the next few years, is the Recycling Reform Act. And this is where producers are of residential packaging and paper products are kind of being held responsible for the end of life management of those products. So this is called an extended producer responsibility bill. This is a big change because essentially there's a lot of products that are made and municipalities are really the ones that are, required to deal with trash. And so how do we deal with all of these various products? This helps it basically invests those fees in that recycling system to improve it, to expand access for curbside recycling, and to reimburse recycling system costs to service providers, whether they be municipal or private. And just make some general improvements to the recycling system across the state. So that will roll out over the next 4 years. I'm really excited to see how that rolls out. British Columbia has had this kind of extended producer responsibility system in place since I think 2012.
Has it been is the residential packaging, is that primarily plastic?
Plastic, but also paper.
Okay.
And then of course we have a lot of our materials aren't just plastic anymore. A lot of our packaging, it's composite.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it might be composite as in a little bit of paper, a little bit of plastic. So one hallmark of this act is that those producers of packaging, someone who's selling a product, whether it be like a package of Doritos or shoes in a box, how recyclable your packaging is will determine your fee.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So how?
Incentivizes them to make it more recyclable at the end of the day. Okay.
Yes, yes. And these,
Have you
these are
heard?
big companies and a whole bunch of them
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sell obviously internationally as well. So, yeah.
Have you heard how it's working out for British Columbia
I mean,
so far?
I think it's working well. Have not been super involved, but there was definitely a lot of research went into this. This has been years in the making in Washington with legislators, solid waste industry experts. So my understanding is it's working well. There's things like this in place in other on other continents. So and then there's Washington is one of 7 states that have this kind of a policy in place at the state level. All of those are fairly new. They were passed within the last year or two. So they're kind of still kind of building up capacity and getting everything in place.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions there?
Not yet, it looks like.
Okay. All right. I want to switch over to talking a little bit more about the city of Sequim and our systems here. So again, we're able to provide service or contract for service. And for a long time, we've had a hauling services contract with Olympic Disposal, which is a Waste Connections company. So they provide for us and to our folks that live within Sequim, both residential and commercial trash collection, required in Sequim Municipal Code to have trash collection. And that trash is then taken to the regional transfer station in Port Angeles and heads to a landfill through their landfill disposal contract. Waste Connections Olympic Disposal also provides recycling, and that's included in trash collection in terms of the fees. Residents don't see a separate fee on their bill. It's everyone can have that. They can request recycling and get that provided with their trash collection. Yard waste collection service is also provided, and at a residential level that is by an additional fee. Large item collection is offered, so couches, any large things that don't fit in your regular trash can be scheduled for pickup by residents. So really handy service, we think, that is provided by Olympic Disposal. They also manage 2 glass recycling drop-off containers, one at Evergreen Collision on Washington Avenue, and then one at the city shop on Hemlock. And so those are, again, free drop-off glass recycling. And that, the glass gets taken to Lacey or to Seattle markets. It's Waste Connections kind of can choose where the best market is at the time. And it's turned into cullet or to landscaping materials such as pipe bedding or landfill cover, various things like that. They also operate or collect from our downtown Big Belly trash and recycling bins. They're kind of these cool public trash and recycling bins. And they are required to, they help with the Rally in the Alley, which is kind of a joint event twice a year with Habitat for Humanity, where they get some items that can be resold in their stores, and folks can bring their trash for collection, kind of to clean up our alleys and make sure we're not having dumping and things like that. So that they also participate in that. And the rates for this service contract, they are kind of set annually. They are a lot based on kind of the legally required pass-through of disposal costs. So whatever it costs for disposal at our wherever we're disposing of it. In this case, the regional transfer station in Port Angeles. So whatever that disposal cost is to Olympic Disposal gets passed through into the rate. And then also there's a few other factors, including consumer price index and things like that. And so those are set annually. And then the city of Sequim also, of course, has entered into an interlocal agreement with Clallam County and City of Port Angeles around transfer and disposal of trash. And so that is why we take our trash currently to regional transfer station. And that outlines some of our planning and coordination around waste management. And of course, we are a member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and signatory to the Solid Waste Management Plan. So that also directs how we manage solid waste in the city. Any questions there?
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, no, we just got a question.
All right.
All right, let's see. Dale Jarvis said, back to recycling. Am I correct in understanding that if a single bin with things like food soiled containers or plastic bags, the entire truckload may be sent to a landfill?
I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And I would say that the short answer is no, but I'll talk a little more specifics about recycling and contamination in just a couple slides.
So stay tuned. Okay.
All right. So other activities that the city of Sequim does around solid waste management, we try to do our part on education and outreach. We've developed these flyers that are used by Waste Connections and city and county in many ways to talk about what is recyclable, what is not recyclable, and then some of those other programs I talked about, special items, anything from compost to glass and other things like that. So we try to educate users of our system on how to use it right. We host a waste and recycling webpage on our website. It's actually one of our top visited web pages, so people are going there for information. And then we use our monthly newsletter and our social media to highlight various things, remind people where to find information, talk about different campaigns that might be going on. So happy to engage with the public on that. We participate in events and programs, so the Rally in the Alley. We're looking at ways to improve recycling at City Hall and some of the events that are city sponsored. And then we do presentations like this and consultation with businesses and residents that might be looking to do anything from a business recycling to a neighborhood composting initiative. We are there to talk with folks, students, groups, things like that. And then we have responsibility to enact policies to embed, solid waste handling into our municipal code to reflect state law or other things like that, and to do reporting to the state to help with data collection. Okay, so maybe Dale, this will get to some of what you're interested in. So let's talk about recycling. So of course, we all know kind of the basics of recycling is that it is collecting, processing, and repurposing waste materials to create new products versus reuse is like you're just reusing a product in its same form. Recycling is going to change it into something new. And this great idea had a purpose to reduce resource and environmental impact, and has been shown to do such to reduce a lot of impacts to natural resource extraction or life cycle impacts of materials. And it also, of course, was meant to capture resale value. I think we all can look at things and understand that they have a value beyond just being thrown in the trash. However, there's a lot of factors at play that have changed recycling over the years as it's been as a system. So this includes international markets because materials are sold often on international or national markets, and the transport of those, the cost of transport, whatever factors are affecting that, gas prices, etc. Product recyclability and variability. We've seen, of course, over our lifetimes, the change of things from being packaged in glass to being packaged in plastic to being packaged in composites that are not just one single material. So that affects how recyclable they are. Consumer behavior has a big is a big factor. What people, if they believe in recycling, if they know how to do it, and how we engineer the system for them to interact with it. And then, of course, we've reviewed some policy and law that can affect the cost and the recyclability of materials. I wanted to mention the concept of single stream, which is pretty common now across the state. And that is that all many recyclable materials go into one bin. Locally, it's usually a blue lidded bin. And so again, we can throw our newspaper in there, we can throw our plastic packaging in there, we can throw our, just various things like that, our tin cans. So we're getting a lot of different kinds of materials into one bin that then has to go somewhere and be sorted back out into a variety of materials. So that has, impacts costs and recyclability. It also impacts, it can improve the quantity that's captured and the participation. So it has some pros and cons. And then contamination, as Dale mentioned, this is when an item is put where it doesn't belong. And it does lower the value. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to throw the whole thing out, because again, this ends up getting sent to, generally all the recycled material is taken, put onto trucks, and then sent to what's called a materials reclamation facility, or a MRF. Locally, we are sending ours to Pioneer Recycling, and they've got lots of machinery, conveyor belts, all sorts of things, humans that are helping to sort items into, sellable material bundles of different kinds. So again, if besides contaminating a load and making it low, that lowers the value. Certainly we're seeing that with contamination. You have paper that is recycled, but if it's in with food waste, can get wet, and it just produces, you get a lower grade paper. So that gets sorted out. And again, there's lots of paper grades that is being sold on the market. So depending on how good those materials are or what grade they are, they can bring a different value to those profits that can then be, are either a company profit or are reinvested in our systems. And another issue with contamination is the risk that it poses to machinery, equipment, and people. For instance, at the materials reclamation facility, when plastic bags get into the recycling stream, and they can clog up machinery, and then you have to go and cut them out, and that can be kind of risky for your staff. Lithium batteries or other things can cause fires in our trucks, in our materials piles. So those are high risk materials that are actually sometimes recyclable, but people don't, but they have to go into special collection. Plastic bags need to go back to the grocery store. Lithium batteries need to go to special collections. But when they get into the single stream recycling, they, again, pose a great risk. Okay, so I've got just a couple more slides here, and I want to talk about a really cool recycling initiative that the city of Sequim, but really has been led by Olympic Disposal for both Clallam County and City of Sequim collections. And this initiative is really it was fun. It's being funded by the state grant, Department of Ecology, with support from the Recycling Partnership, which is a knowledgeable nationwide organization that improves circularity in recycling systems, among other things. It was executed in 3 cities and county, and so we were really the best example of a rural community, and we took the approach of installing smart cameras that you might be able to see up there on this local recycling truck, Olympic Disposal recycling trucks, and those smart cameras were able to essentially look at as those carts were tipped into the bin and look for contamination. Of course, so the goal of this project was to reduce contamination using studied strategies and on recycling, residential recycling streams, and then to also to gather data collection to inform recycling education and services.
How does it do that? Does it use AI and just scan everything? And
Yep, it is kind of an AI scanner that can, that identifies contamination. So kind of takes a picture. The picture is geotagged. So I'll go ahead and just pop to the next slide. It's geotagged and you can kind of see the picture there on this feedback mailer that were sent out. And, it's really an informational campaign. So it's sort of saying like, hey, here's the picture. We saw that you had bagged recycling. So again, you might have had perfect recycling, but if you put it in a plastic bag, that's considered an oops or a contamination because of its impact. So basically this flyer would just send out and say, hey, please don't bag your recycling. Of course, they're really looking for hazardous materials or large amounts of incorrect materials. But so this was a very personalized but friendly campaign to just provide feedback to folks in Clallam, to recyclers in Clallam County and City of Sequim. And the Recycling Initiative preliminary results, Waste Connections or Olympic Disposal will be presenting more on this at a future Solid Waste Advisory Committee, but preliminary results were good and showed some kind of reduction in contamination. In Clallam County, it went from 24% to 17%, and this is by weight. So overall, that's showing a 29% improvement. In Sequim, I didn't get the pre-contamination rate, but the post-contamination rate was 22%, and it was a smaller improvement or decrease. However, the folks the waste sorters that were looking at that kind of compared pre-audit loads to post-audit loads noted that Sequim's data was a little skewed by a heavy bag of yard waste. So the improvement was a little greater than that if we excluded that outlier. And so that actually concludes my presentation here. I want to leave some time for questions. And I really appreciate everyone's attention.
great presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to stop share so I can see folks.
Great.
Is that good?
Any questions? Oh, Colleen.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, for presenting. Really appreciate you. So I have some questions. I was just doing some math. I've always known that Port Townsend dumping fees are so much less than in Clallam County. They are charging $187 a ton. And at the Port Angeles, I know it's not transfer station, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's uh it is $244 a ton, which is 30% higher than Port Townsend's. And then at the Blue Mountain Transfer Station, I'm doing my math here. It is minus 187 is 135.90 divided by 187. It's 73% higher. Why is that? Why is it that Port Townsend is able to do it so much less expensive than we can?
Well, I'll give you a couple answers to that. One being that I am not Port Townsend and I am not, I'm not Jefferson County. That's who runs their solid
Yep.
waste system. And I am not City of Port Angeles. So I don't work on those rates. So I want to caveat that a little bit and would encourage folks to go and look at that. In fact, I know that Jefferson County right now is actually doing a bit of a rate review and a system review, and they're making some, they've already initiated a couple of big changes because they have had some concerns about their transfer station rate. They want to keep it manageable. However, they feel like it's not adequate to do needed capital improvements. So they are looking at some changes. I think they have recently moved to single stream, which they had really resisted for a long time. So
what does that mean? Single stream.
Meaning that all their recyclables would go in one blue bin versus they used to, even curbside, they would just have 3 bins, as many of us might remember from a long time ago. Garbage, you'd set out your box of paper, your box of tin, and your box of plastic. So that's Jefferson County. For instance, the difference between, so to set rates, the last few years, City of Port Angeles have been doing in-house cost of service analysis. So right now, they, in the last few recent months, they've presented their last COSA, it's called, Cost of Service Analysis for Solid Waste. And they say that each of the services they're providing are really based on the cost of that service to provide. So a little difference between this transfer station, the regional transfer station and Blue Mountain Transfer Station is that the city is having to send personnel and trucks out to the Blue Mountain Transfer Station to bring that materials back to the transfer station. So, you have different costs involved.
So it's a convenience factor for people that want to just take it to Blue Mountain.
Yes, I mean,
that's why it's more expensive there than it is going all the way to the Port Angeles transfer station.
That's a little bit of it, and again,
so I understand
really...
that, but why is there such a big difference, a 30% difference between the Port Angeles transfer station and the Port Townsend location?
Yeah, again, I think I'm not going to be able to really answer that well, because I think it depends a lot on those costs of services. Is there, what kind of contract do you have? So even though City of Port Angeles is operating, they do in-house collections and they manage the transfer station, they still depend on disposal contracts with either local haulers and then at the landfill. So they're negotiating with some private companies, so within these utilities, they're not operated solely for nonprofit, like your water and wastewater utilities around here, even electrical utilities, right? Those are generally operated not for profit. You're just trying to provide that surface versus communications or solid waste utilities that have elements of profit companies in them, as well as then, for instance, Port Angeles, we have farther to go to markets, likely than Port Townsend. Again, lots of factors there. It's a really interesting question, I think, as we all consider how do we manage rates. Yeah. So
when the city, I guess just a yes or no answer or up or down answer, when the City of Port Angeles took over the transfer station and collections from Waste Management, was it?
Waste Connections.
Waste Connections. Okay. That owns Olympic Disposal.
Yep.
Did the rates go up or down?
Well, I mean, I guess rates have gone up over the last 5 years. What were they going to, what would they have gone up anyway? That might be the
Okay.
question we're
Okay.
looking at. And that's a good question for City of Port Angeles.
Yep. Got it.
To kind of
Which is
look.
not,
because
you're not in charge of that. I get
I'm
that.
not,
You're just,
I'm not totally in charge of that. And yes, that, that again, a lot of factors at play and what the costs of a system are, things, but that occurred in 2022, that change. And
Mhm.
again, there's a lot of costs that go into building those rates.
Yeah.
Both for
Yeah.
Waste Connections as they build the rate that they, offer Sequim customers, and the same for
Mhm.
City of Port Angeles, the ones that they offer their collection customers and their transfer station customers.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So a couple other questions or comments. The port's going to have 3 barges that they will own. They've been working with Waste Management on barging. Will the port have a kind of formal role with the solid waste board that the county pulls together so that barging and solutions with barging can be considered at the forefront?
I would say yes, absolutely. That is one reason I'm here, and one reason that we, as we invite people to participate, whether you feel like you can step into an actual position on SWAC as a voting member, but also just, it's just good to know information. Because again, there's a lot of chapters that touch a lot of different industries, and we've always tried to capture activities, again, from wood waste processing to barging, to small, almost cottage industries that are doing that to those existing conditions, as well as those opportunities that help support all of us as we move forward in those endeavors. So good to know. I think certainly as chair, I will take that back and invite you to continue the conversation with myself or Ron Garcelon, who is the utility manager and kind of the liaison at the county for the solid waste management plan.
I don't know that I'm the right person. We've got some staff that are experts in barging, and I just know this much, enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
I know they float on water instead of have wheels on roads, but beyond that, I get scared.
Definitely reach out to the port, especially, I know there's been a lot of stuff that's come through, biochar development, other things that it's good to capture kind of what has been discussed, in the last few years and what those opportunities might be, again, to help with planning and investment support in the future.
So the other thing is the Clallam EDC has been awarded $175,000 from Rockefeller Foundation to try to move biomass reuse and into production. So we are working with the landowners, the collectors, and the market pull companies, which would be sustainable aviation fuel, biodiesel, biogenic carbon that replaces metallurgical coal in steel manufacturing, and biochar. And we're working with the state to try to use their procurement power to use biochar more frequently. But what they need to do is have more pilot programs that shows what are the protocols for using biochar in wastewater treatment and also cleanup of contaminated properties. And so anyway, we're working with the legislature on that, but I just would love to engage with the SWAC so that we get information about what is happening at the county level, and we can integrate that through our pilot programs that we're proposing at the state level.
Excellent. Yes. Great information. Thank you for sharing. I'll bring that back. And we do like to often, as we're updating various chapters, sometimes bring in folks to do presentations relevant to that so that there can be a really robust discussion. So excellent.
Okay. Great.
Invite the EDC.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Love to talk about garbage.
Yes. Thank you. I think there's some more questions in the chat.
Yeah, Dale had another question about contamination. He said, I have a peanut butter container that has a very small amount of peanut butter left after cleaning it with soap and hot water. Does that go in the trash or in the recycling?
I would, if you've taken time to clean that, I would send that to the recycling. You might have seen my slide there where it showed a dirty versus versus clean. Peanut butter's a hard one, but yeah, we're asking people to rinse their materials out. A lot of food waste isn't going to be good. You know, I think the message from the state and that we try to repeat locally is like, it's better to recycle right than to recycle more. That's going to help those materials be more valuable. And, you know, I continue to be amazed how often I see people still throw cans in the garbage. And that, you know, some basic stuff like that, cans and our cardboard, we know the value of cardboard around here. We have mills that use that. I mean, the cardboard that's collected commercially in Sequim, that goes to Port Townsend Paper. That's billed and goes to Port Townsend Paper, baled. You know, we know that that's supporting a local industry. I would just encourage people to really not to get so nitpicky about and so stressed about recycling, but to just look for those high value materials in your office. Can you collect cans? Can you collect newspaper? Can you collect cardboard? You know, those kinds of initiatives and efforts are really important. Keep washing out your recyclables. If you're going to recycle plastics and other things, you know, look at those lists that are available on websites at the City of Port Angeles, Comm County, City of Sequim, for what is acceptable, and don't worry about the small stuff. And then composting is one of the most impactful individual actions that people can do for the climate, but for garbage. I mean, about 25% of an individual garbage can is compostable materials. And, you know, we know the value of that. We get it. It's a natural process to a big extent, and it makes more valuable soil. So you know, that's really some easy ways that people can, they care about recycling and reuse. That's some good actions they can take. Thanks for asking, Dale.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. There was a time when the City of Port Angeles produced or sold soil, like a composted soil. I forgot what they called it.
Garden Glory?
What is it?
Garden Glory.
Garden
Yes.
Glory. I was going to say Marigold. Totally wrong. Garden Glory.
Yeah.
And it was great and inexpensive. And then they stopped doing that. Do you happen to know if they will start producing that again anytime soon?
So yeah, in that transition from Waste Connections to city service, they did stop. They still receive yard waste and materials. They chip it up. That does get shipped, I think, currently to Shelton to become composted in a compost mix by a private company. Whether they'll start that up as a municipal product, Garden Glory was a mix of yard waste from cities and private haulers, chipped, mixed with biosolids from the city's wastewater treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and tested, and you know, you could get a fact sheet on that, on what is in that. That was sold, and it did have a robust market. It is on their capital projects list, I believe, in their capital facilities plan to investigate compost, you know, producing a locally produced compost. It's unfunded, I believe, on their list at this time.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, cool, Mitch. Thank you for helping out this morning. I apologize. I showed up tardy, and so it's 9:01. I think that will close it for the day. Meggan, thank you for all of your expertise in the presentation today. It's really something we normally don't think about, but it's critically important. So thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
And
appreciate being here.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.